Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and today we're taking a look at the meta strategy points for the upcoming run of game weeks that goes double, single, blank. So for those of you that aren't aware, but I'm sure probably many of you are, in game week 25, which is scheduled for February 24th kickoff, there's the potential for a relatively big blank game week. It is not the biggest blank game week on the horizon, but it is the first one coming up that we should start to consider now that we are looking at game week 22 and only a few game weeks to plan accordingly. Now, there's a lot of advice floating around out there with general rules around what we should and shouldn't do around blanks. For example, you'll quite often hear, don't buy players from teams that are going to blank, and sell players in your team from teams that will blank in a few game weeks' time. Now, generally this is pretty good advice to follow, but it is not always just as simple as blindly following that rule. And game week 25 shows us why we should consider alternative strategies around blank game weeks, especially given the fixtures that are looking like they are going to blank. Now, what I've got on screen here is Ben Crellin's latest spreadsheet with fixtures and how the doubles may or may not drop in and how the blanks look like they could be running. So you'll see on screen here game week 25, the orange one up here with the first set of red columns running down the screen. We've got Brentford potentially blanking against United, so I'll just read out the teams that are blanking or potentially blanking. So we've got Brentford potential blank, Brighton potential blank, Leeds, Manchester United, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, Southampton and West Ham. Now, that's quite a lot of teams that are blanking. I think it's 8 in total, and so that only leaves us 12 teams to choose from, or 12 teams that will be probably playing in game week 25. Now, depending on what happens in, I think it's the Carabao Cup and some other cups that are floating around the place, some of these teams may actually play in 25. So this is not a hard and fast, these teams will definitely blank, but it is teams that are still in competitions, which means that if they do continue to progress, that they will blank in game week 25. Now, my strategy around blanks is to identify the teams that, well, to have a look at what a free hit team would look like in game week 25 and identify those players or the teams that we need to load up on in order to have coverage, I suppose, for fielding a team that will score okay compared to a free hit team. Now, if I just bring up a transfer planner here, which I've already preset to game week 25, I'll just reset that. So this is my team as it stands right now. Game week 22, I've got 4.5 million in the bank and 2 free transfers. I've already got my plan set in stone, unless of course any injuries come out of the Carabao Cup and FA Cup games that are coming up. Now, it should be noted that I am recording this on the 23rd of January, so pretty much all of the games in game week 21 have been played. The only fixture that remains is Tottenham versus Fulham. Right, so my plan over here was to get rid of McAllister and bring in Saka. Get rid of Almiron and bring in Odegaard in game week 22. This allows me to jump on, a couple of Arsenal attackers for a great fixture away to Everton. They then have a double. So Arsenal are playing Everton away in game week 22, and then they've got a double in 23 at home to Brentford and home to Man City. Then away to Aston Villa, and they do play in game week 25 away to Leicester. Now there's actually quite a lot of time between game week 21 completing tomorrow on the 24th and the deadline for game week 22, which is Saturday the 4th of February, which is actually a couple of weeks away. So these are my most probable trades, assuming that nothing major happens to my team in the next couple of game weeks, but let's just assume everything is well and good. So we'll be bringing in Saka and Odegaard in game week 22, and if we just skip forward to game week 25, when the blank is likely to happen. Now, transfer planners out there don't have these blanks showing at the moment, because obviously these games are still scheduled in, as they haven't gone too much further in their cup ties. And if I was to look at my team right now, we'll jump out of the transfer planner and look at what I've currently got. We know that Manchester United, Newcastle and Brighton could all be blanking in game week 25, and if you look at my team at the moment, that actually looks quite terrible, because I've got Luke Shaw, Marcus Rashford, McAllister, and the 3 Newcastle players of Almiron, Botman and Trippier. So I've actually got 6 players in my team that could potentially blank in game week 25. Now I am sort of taking care of that a little bit this week by getting rid of Almiron and McAllister. Almiron was slated to be transferred out of my team this week, irrelevant of what he did, and now that we've seen McAllister play a couple of games for Brighton, playing out a central defensive midfield, these are the 2 weakest players in my starting 11, and so we'll be dealing with those. So game week 22, I've got 6 potential blankers. So my whole backline's probably going to blank, well, my starting backline anyway, Almiron and McAllister. Now we chuck in Odegaard and Saka and scroll this transfer planner through to game week 25, and this is how it's looking. We've got Kepa away to Tottenham Hotspur and net. We've got Shaw, Botman and Trippier, who will all not be playing. So what we'll do here is we'll just assume that all the potential blankers of Brentford, Brighton, Leeds, United, Newcastle, Forest, Southampton and West Ham are all blanking. Let's just assume right now that they are all definitely going to blank in game week 25. So that would mean at this point, game week 25, after making my 2 transfers this week, and obviously no other transfers leading up until this point, I would have 4 of my starting members without a game. So we would have Rashford without a game, so chuck him on the bench for Andreas, who would actually be playing at home to Wolves. We'll take Shaw out and put in Bueno from Wolves, who also have a game away to Fulham. Patterson is currently injured, but the date that he's actually meant to be coming back is the 18th of Feb. It was actually a very long injury. He's been out for a while, so the chances are that he might not even be back for that game, so let's just assume he's not playing as well. And so my team, without any further transfers, would look something like this. So carrying into game week 25, I would have Botman and Trippier left in my team, who would both blank in game week 25. Now, when I look at this, compared to where my team is at right now without any transfers, 6 players versus 4, but using some of my bench members, I can actually field 9 players in game week 25, which is actually not that bad. Now, a free hit team in game week 25, and I haven't actually sat down and built a free hit team, because I know for sure that I will not be free hitting in this game week. My team's already pretty well set up for this game week, but for those of you out there that have a whole bunch of injuries and a much different structure to your team, you may be quite a lot further away from a team that you could just roll with in Game Week 25. And so what you might want to do is build a free hit team and see what that team would look like for all those players out there that will use their free hit chip in Game Week 25, because there will be a lot of players in Game Week, managers out there in Game Week 25 that will use their free hit. Now, if I was to look at the selection of teams that are playing, now remember we are still assuming that those that could blank are all blanking. From the teams that are left playing, I think the top two targets for a free hitter will probably be Haaland and Kane. Haaland playing Bournemouth. Now Kane's playing Chelsea at home, but Chelsea haven't been amazing defensively, and from the teams that remain, I think you'll probably find that Kane will enter a lot of free hit teams if you were to free hit in that week. Then next on the list would be a talk or discussion between Kevin De Bruyne, Mo Salah, and potentially someone like Son from Spurs if Son starts scoring in the next couple of weeks. So that would probably be the next contentious point, given the budgets that we're all playing with. That would give 3 premiums in the free hit team of Haaland, Kane, and either De Bruyne, Salah, or Son. And then you'd fill out your team with 3 Arsenal assets, clearly, because Arsenal are playing. They are away to Leicester. Leicester haven't kept a clean sheet in like 5 weeks, conceding about 2 to 3 goals each week. And so you'll definitely be lining up with 3 Arsenal, whether it's 2 attackers and 1 defender, 2 defenders and 1 attacker, or 3 attackers. Will really depend on your team as it's structured at the moment. But for me, I will be rolling with 3 Arsenal attackers because I think there's just much more upside from the Arsenal attack as opposed to putting in a defensive player from this team. Odegaard, Saka and Nketiah I think will get a successive run of points that will outscore the likes of, say, Gabriel. Should do anyway. Let's say Gabriel. Ben White I saw was subbed off in the match against United, and so his minutes look a little less assured. But if you do have an Arsenal defender out there, you're probably going to hold them right the way through until Game Week 25. Now, the difference with this team and a free hit team would be probably maybe I don't play with Bueno and I would get rid of these 2 Newcastle defenders for that 1 week, and then potentially change up my goalkeeper, right, if I was going to free hit. Now, if we actually go and have a look at the teams that would be playing in Game Week 25, I'm really looking for a couple of players from a good defensive team that's got an okay game in Game Week 25 and a keeper, right? So maybe someone instead of Andreas. A free hitter would probably upgrade Rashford to someone else and probably have someone like an Andreas on the bench as first sub, just in case one of the players that they choose doesn't play in Game Week 25. Now, so we're already tripled up on Arsenal, so we can't select from them. Leeds have a blank. We're still assuming that they are blanking here. I've only got 2 Man City, so potentially we look at a Man City defender. If you can nail one down, and if you aren't already tripled up on Man City, they would be probably top of the list of a team that we would like to fill in here. So they're away to Bournemouth. United are blanking. Brighton are blanking. Remember, assuming that they're blanking, but we're just going to say that they're blanking. Chelsea's going to play, but they are away to Tottenham, so we probably don't want any defenders from Chelsea. Fulham are not a great defensive team, but they are at home to Wolves. Wolves don't score a whole lot of goals, so maybe we would chuck in a Wolves defender there. Liverpool haven't been great defensively for a little while, but you might find a few Trents or Robertsons sitting in a free hit team for a 1 week punt away to Crystal Palace. Southampton are blanking. Wolves are away to Fulham, so you probably wouldn't go there, as Mitrovic is probably going to nab a goal against Wolves. Nottingham Forest are blanking. Brentford are playing Manchester United, so we probably don't want any defenders from there. Leicester are playing Arsenal. We don't really need defenders from there. Everton haven't been a great defensive team either, but they are at home to Aston Villa, so you might chuck in the likes of a Patterson if he was fit, or maybe someone else from the Everton defensive lineup. West Ham are blanking. Spurs are at home to Chelsea, so maybe you chuck in like a Doherty, if that's how you're pronouncing it over there, even though my name's pronounced Doherty. So we probably wouldn't go with a Tottenham defender, but maybe Doherty or Sessegnon, something like that. Crystal Palace is at home to Liverpool, probably wouldn't go there either. Aston Villa, maybe we'll go with a defender there. Newcastle are blanking, and then Bournemouth are at home to Man City, and so you probably don't want anything from there. So if you run through the list, who am I actually going to bring in for Botman or Trippier or Kepa that is actually worthwhile just for that game week in 25? Now also, if I am going to get rid of Botman and Trippier, because one of those general rules is get rid of your players that blank in a couple of game weeks, so you'd say someone like Botman is probably on the chopping block. But Botman's run of fixtures leading up to 25 isn't actually that bad. Home to West Ham, away to Bournemouth, home to Liverpool. Liverpool haven't been great lately, and we've just seen Chelsea keep a clean sheet against them in the Liverpool-Chelsea match. Honestly, the only time I was actually nervous about Kepa losing his clean sheet in that full fixture was when he came out to clear a cross and got a little bit muddled up in the majority of players that were around him in the box. That was about the only time that I was actually concerned about Chelsea losing their clean sheet against Liverpool. So unless Liverpool completely turn it around, I'd be more than happy to play double Newcastle in that Liverpool fixture in game week 25. And so selling someone like Botman with that run of fixtures just because they potentially blank in game week 25, now remember this is still a potential blank, to jump on some sort of defensive team out of that list that we just read through, there's not really a hell of a lot for game week 25 that looks that much better. Plus, I would have to hold that player for the majority of game weeks running up until game week 25, which, to be honest, given how, say, Newcastle, for example, have been performing, they've just got 6 clean sheets in a row, 7 clean sheets in 8, 8 clean sheets in 10, 9 clean sheets in the last 11. 9 clean sheets in the last 11. Right, so if your rule is sell players that are going to blank, well, we're going to get rid of Botman. He could pick up another 3 clean sheets in the next 3 game weeks before we get to game week 25, just so that you can field one more player in that blank game week in game week 25. Now, that doesn't seem smart. And I would actually recommend not using this rule to put yourself off buying, say, a second Newcastle defender, or potentially someone from Brighton, who have an amazing run of fixtures. Brighton have Bournemouth at home, Crystal Palace away, Fulham at home, potential blank, West Ham at home. Now, that's great for Brighton. That's a great run of fixtures for Brighton, especially one of their attackers, where Brighton look like they are generating quite a bit of an attack. We could miss out on, say, someone like Solly March or Matoma, who is high up a lot of people's lists in terms of assets that they want to bring in. Matoma just scored in game week 21, looks like a great player. But should you be discounting Matoma just because he blanks in game week 25, potentially blanks in game week 25, with that run of fixtures running into 25? Probably not. I think Matoma is still probably a good buy as long as your overall team doesn't look too bad for game week 25. Now, if you were on, say, triple Newcastle, triple United, couple of Brighton players, maybe an Ivan Toney up front, maybe a Rodrigo from Leeds or something, you'd be looking like, oh, I seriously do have to deal with these issues, and getting rid of one of those players to bring in someone like a Matoma from Brighton or a Botman from Newcastle is not the smartest play, and that's why that rule or that general advice is often said quite often. But if you have the main players that most players will have in that game week 25 for the free hit, you could quite easily consider bringing in someone like a Matoma or a Botman and pick up all those points that are on offer for the weeks leading up until game week 25. And so if you do hear managers out there, you'll find a lot of question and answer sections where they'll be like, should I buy, let's say, Matoma or Odegaard? You'll get some content creators coming back saying, well, you should buy Odegaard because Matoma could blank in game week 25. Now, both of these players are great buys. I would just say do not discount someone like a Matoma from Brighton or someone from a Newcastle defence, just because there is the potential that they do blank in game week 25. For me, I'm looking like I'm going to carry Shaw and Rashford through this blank and quite happily just play Andreas. There's not a hell of a lot of other midfielders that I'd be potentially worried about in game week 25. Yes, I will probably score a little bit less than average in game week 25 because I may not be fielding, a full strong 11. I'll be looking like I'm going to field 9 players and having to play Bueno and Andreas. But I think when you actually go and sit down and build that free hit team, given the budget required for a Haaland, Kane, and in my case De Bruyne, plus 3 Arsenal, the remaining players that you're actually going to slot in game week 25 are probably all going to average 2 points, apart from those defenders where you get quite lucky and actually do manage to bring in a defensive asset that gets a clean sheet for that week. So, long and the short of it, great bit of general advice is to not buy players from teams that are going to blank, and potentially looking at getting rid of the players in your team that could also blank, but don't just sell them for those reasons. Do take a look forward at game week 25 to see how your team will line up, because it might not be as bad as what you think from the outset. Now, game week 21 has gone amazing. Jeez, went a lot better than I thought it would when I looked at the start of the week. We're currently sitting on 87 points. We still have Kane to play. It's our 6th green arrow in a row, which is awesome. We've managed to clamber our way from a little over 3 million in game week 15, all the way up to 1.3 million currently without Kane to play in game week 21. So to read out the results, the results of the scores from the players that I had Kepa and net, who, as I said in the last video, having watched Liverpool play not the game against Chelsea but the game prior, I was more than happy to play Kepa in this game and could quite easily see him getting a clean sheet and a bunch of saves and get somewhere up about a 9 or 10 pointer. And that is exactly what happened. I'll tell you what though, as soon as Darwin came onto the pitch for Liverpool in like the 70th or 75th minute, he actually came on quite late. They actually looked like they got a lot more opportunities from that point moving forward. Darwin he seems to read the game really well. He knows where he needs to be, picks up the ball in very advanced positions, feeds in his teammates, and they did generate a lot more attack from the last 20 minutes of the game, but there wasn't anything too dangerous being generated on the whole. So Kepa comes through with 9 points. Luke Shaw picked up a late yellow to go along with his 3 goals conceded. Late winner conceded and gets 0 points, which is unfortunate. Like I said, Newcastle pick up their 6th clean sheet on the bounce, so the Trippier and Botman double up comes through yet again. Almiron didn't really have much opportunity in the game, but he gets the clean sheet as well. He's just been going 3 points, odd goal. Where's he gone? Goal, 3 points, 2 points, 3 points, 3 points. Not amazing from Almiron, but that's alright. He was one of the keys that allowed me to unlock the 3.5 premiums. Now that I have gone away from the 3.5 premiums by downgrading Darwin last week to Nketiah, we do have the funds to upgrade both Almiron and McAllister. As I should say that I'm currently sitting with 4.5 million in the bank after last week's trades of Darwin down to Nketiah and Cancelo down to Luke Shaw. Kevin De Bruyne does start in the fixture against Wolves, which is great because he did miss the second game from the double. Comes away with one of the assists for Haaland's hat-trick. Rashford scores the opener against Arsenal with a great strike. Hit the ball, a bit of a knuckleball really, and kind of outside the box. Great strike to go past the unsighted Ramsdale. McAllister picks up his 5th yellow and is suspended, further warranting the need to get rid of him this week, which was already planned, as I mentioned in last week's video. I finally pick up a Haaland haul with my captaincy, which is great to see. I did see a couple of differential captains out there. I think Magnus Carlsen went for Kane as captain this week. So there are a few players out there, or managers out there, that were going against Haaland this week and have been caught out by the hat-trick. Of course, Kane could, by all means, go and score a hat-trick against Fulham, and so it might not be as bad as what we think. Kane's still to play, and Eddie Nketiah grabs the double to win the game against United, which was heartbreaking to see from a United fan in the dying moments of the game, but kind of great to see from an FPL perspective as he picks up 13 points for the game week. So currently with game week rank of 126k and boosted me from 1.8 million up to 1.3 million. So it's about a 500k rank increase with one player to play. So that's it for the video this week. If you did make it this far through the video, please do consider giving it a like. And if you are new around here, hit the big red subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified about all FPL content coming your way. And until next time, I'll catch you again shortly. Cheers.